Well, hello everybody, and thank you again for coming to our next Our Kids Code webinar. And this time we're going to concentrate on MakeCode Arcade. And Pam O'Brien has joined us. Thank you very much, Pam, for coming along. Pam is a lecturer in the IT part of TUS and is one of the EU ambassadors for Code Week Ireland. And passionate about coding, and another one of the SFI sponsored projects, just like ourselves. So today she's going to come on and share her knowledge and experience in MakeCode Arcade. So hopefully this will be useful within the club environment for new project ideas and new things to be working on, and new skills that you can be developing within the club. So we'll do the normal thing. I think Pam is going to take over and give it a bit of presentation and a bit of a demo. And then afterwards we'll do some Q&As. So any issues at all, you know where I am, and you can contact me via chat. And I hope you enjoy your time. Thank you. Okay, Pam, I'll stop sharing and you can start sharing.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Sarah, and thanks for having me this evening. It's great to get the opportunity to talk about our project. So I'm just going to start with a very quick slideshow. Feel free to ask me questions as you go, but if you're putting questions in the chat when I'm presenting, I can't see the questions in the chat, so just be aware of that, if that's okay. So our project, as Sarah mentioned, is also funded under the Discover programme, and it is funded by Science Foundation Ireland and the Department of Education. We're delighted to get this opportunity to work on this project. So our project is exploring the Sustainable Development Goals through coding, and we are working with the upper primary school, so 5th and 6th mainly, for primary school students and teachers. We're looking at the Sustainable Development Goals, of which we know there are 17 of them. And often when I'm talking to students and teachers, they're not so sure about the Sustainable Development Goals, but when we show them this image, they know about the various different ones, and we talk a little bit about those. So the technologies that we're looking at in this project is MakeCode Arcade and Microbit. Tonight I'm going to focus more on the MakeCode Arcade because I know the OurKidsCode clubs have a lot of experience and expertise in Microbit. So I'm looking at the MakeCode Arcade. MakeCode Arcade is an environment for creating games. And I suppose just to give you a little bit of information about our project. So our project is, as I said, working with 5th and 6th class students and their teachers. We bring them on a campus visit. It's a 2.5-hour visit for students. And we do an introduction to the Sustainable Development Goals. We do an escape box activity, and then we do a campus tour and some workshops in Arcade and Microbit. We then follow up with visits to the schools, doing Arcade and Microbit workshops. And we have a set of resources for teachers, slide decks and videos. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about those in a little while. So I suppose that's really why Sarah has asked me here tonight. So I've spoken to Sarah and Louise about this in the past. I'm just going to share again. So again, like Sarah, I'm used to using Teams for things like this. So I'm just struggling a little bit with Zoom because I need to share my screen each time. So if I'm talking about something and you're not seeing it as you think you should, then just let me know. So I'm just going to show you one of our slide decks. So this is for one of the SDGs. So I'm just going to put it on full. So I'm just going to do it on SlideShare. So again, this is looking at SDG 14, which is life below water. And again, what we do is we talk about the Sustainable Development Goals. We look at a little bit of information about SDG 14, which is about conserving and sustainably using the oceans, the seas, and the marine resources for sustainable development. And we talk a little bit about the ocean, and one of the issues around the ocean is plastic pollution. And that sets us up for the project which we're about to look at. So we're looking at a MakeCode Arcade game, which is aimed at removing plastic from the ocean. So when we're talking about games, I would always talk to the students, not just about getting involved and getting stuck in with it, but we talk about, so we're obviously going to create it in MakeCode Arcade. And then I would always talk about the game's design. So we're looking at the who, so those are the characters, the where, and the what. So the who is, in this case, will be a player and an enemy. The player is a duck, and the enemy is our plastic. They're in the ocean, and the duck must remove as many pieces of plastic as possible in 30 seconds. So that's the broad game that we need to create. And then again, we'd look at the assets. So here our assets are our duck, which we choose as one of the predefined characters that's already there within Arcade. And then we're going to draw this plastic. And so we would talk to the students a little bit about, using assets that are already there as opposed to drawing your own. And then I would show them the game as it's going to be. So this is the game that we will create. And then I would just flash up the code, but then I would go into creating that game. So I'm just going to stop sharing there for a second, and I'm just going to go and share. Sorry, my apologies. So I'm just going to share where I actually have created that game so you can see it. And I think it's in this one, but bear with me. Yeah, I think it's in here. So if I go to here, I've got a couple of different ones here, so I just want to make sure I have the correct one. It's just taking a little bit of time. For some reason, it is just showing the same one over and over again. Okay, so I'm just going to come out of here and I'll go back in a different way. So this is our plastic game. Sorry, my apologies. For some reason, it's not showing me. It's not going into the right one. Yeah, this is it now. So this is our game, and I'm just going to show you the game. So we have a duck moving around. The pieces of plastic are just appearing randomly on the screen, and the duck catches the pieces of plastic. You can see that we've got a countdown here. We've got a score to count how many pieces of plastic we got. So that's the game that we create, and then this is our code for it. So we have here creating our duck. We're moving it with buttons. Now, I'm not sure, do you want me to do, maybe I might just create a new game here for a second, just a new project, and just show you how we would build that up. So if I put plastic, OurKidsCode, so I'm just creating a project, I'm giving it a name. And then in the on start, I'm going to create a sprite. So this environment, while it's not something maybe you would have seen before, it's not too different from what's there from the microbit because it's made by Microsoft as well, and it's a MakeCode environment. So here I've got on start, set my sprite to sprite of kind player. If I click on the gray block, I can choose in the gallery, I can choose my duck and click done, and then the duck is going to appear here on the left hand side. I can move that duck with buttons, and then when I do that and it restarts, I can move the duck around the screen. I can set a background color. So it's actually quite straightforward to do. So we can just build up the game as we go. And I'm just going to put in a different color there. And I'm just going to launch this in full screen so you can see that you can move your duck around. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole project because I have a video. And if I show you here, I just have a video of this. Sorry, it's just this one here. And if I click on it here, so this is a video that I've created going through all of the steps to create that project for you. So that's one of the projects that we have, one of the games that we have. I can show you some other ones as well. So if I just go back here, and if we just look at Rhino here. So this is a different game that we've created for SDG 15, which is life on land. And here we've got a character and she's moving around the screen. And the object of the exercise is to find rhinos and count them. So there's one. Once we find it, the rhino disappears and goes to another part of the screen. We can find it again. There's two of them. There's three. And it just appears randomly on the screen. But this is a different kind of a game to the previous one because it has a time map. So what we're trying to do in the games that we're creating is that we're trying to, I suppose, expose the children and their teachers to lots of different aspects of games design. And by developing these games, we're looking at the Sustainable Development Goals, but we're also looking at various aspects of games design. So that's that game. And then I'll just show you just one other one. So we're just trying to, I suppose, show this ocean cleanup one. Just need to make sure this is the correct one. It is. So I'm just going to show you this one. So this is concerned with clean water and sanitation, SDG 6. And we have an oil tanker drawn by me. So this one is slightly different because everything is drawn by whoever is creating the game in this one. So we've got the oil tanker. It's going to run aground on the rocks. When it does, it sinks. You get an oil spill. And in a couple of seconds, here comes the rescue boat. The rescue boat is going to clean up the oil spill. It's just moving a little bit slowly, but that's all part of it. And then when it gets to the oil spill, it's going to destroy the oil spill. So it's cleaning it up. And then when that disappears, it's going to go back from where it came from. So again, I have PowerPoint slides. I have some videos created for those. So I might just stop sharing and just see, are there any questions? Okay, so I know there's a question on how do you draw. Sarah, I'm not sure, do you want me to go into more detail? I suppose I just want to see what people want, or did I go too fast? I just want to show you the environment first, and then I'm happy to do whatever.
It would be good to understand, I suppose, I think from my side, because we're used to using MakeCode and,
Yeah.
using a bit of Scratch, what the big differences, I suppose, are with MakeCode Arcade. Is it just the simulator itself that you can then, or is it a change in how the logic of coding would work?
It works a little bit differently in that, I suppose, and this is getting a little bit technical, and I don't want to get too technical.
No, but more in how we
Yeah,
think
so
about it, I suppose.
from a programming perspective, I suppose this is more like object-oriented programming. In Scratch, you have each of your characters. If you, and I'll just go back into the environment and just show you in the environment. So if I go, where am I? Just trying to find which one has it. Is that the one? I'm struggling to find. No, it's not it. Let me just find where I want to go to, and then I'll stop sharing that and just see if I can. I'm just struggling a little bit with finding the correct, no more than yourself. I think it's this one here, actually. Yeah, so if we go here, and I'll just go back to the one that I created. So if we go in here, so in Scratch, what happens is you have a number of different characters, and then you click on your characters, and it all, you do different things for each character. In MakeCode Arcade, all of it happens in the same place. So if I go to on game update, and I'll show you, I'll deal with the next question, which is around plastic as well, or sorry, drawing. So I'm going to create the piece of plastic here. But it all happens in the same environment. Whereas in Scratch, you have your different characters and it splits it that way. Here, it's kind of looking at it more as a program, and you have each of your different objects created slightly differently. So if I look here and I go in, I want to create a piece of plastic. So I'm just going, I have an editor here. So I can just make this all white, and I can just then create some plastic like this. So I'm just making it transparent, and that means that the blue will show up underneath. And what happens when it restarts is you can see your piece of plastic there, and your duck is underneath it, and then we can move our duck out. So it is slightly different from Scratch, but I suppose one of the things that it does is it handles a lot of the game's concepts, like collision detection, your overlaps. It handles that very easily. It has this type of object. So you've got a player, you've got the concept of an enemy, which you don't have in Scratch. So it's a bit more, I suppose, games focused than maybe Scratch is. It's a little bit different from Microbit, because the Microbit MakeCode environment is very focused on just using the Microbit. This one here is all about creating games.
So
Have I answered the question? I'm not sure.
Yeah. So what would be the difference then between, if you were setting something up like this as a player, and then you were setting something up as an enemy? What would that mean in this environment?
Well, what it means is if I now have, so I have a player here, which is my duck, and I've got an enemy, which is my piece of plastic. If I go into sprites here and I go down and find overlaps, which is a very common, I suppose, concept in games design, which is overlaps or collision detection. If I have a player here and an enemy, I can say when the player is overlapping with the enemy, then I can do something. And one of the things I can do is maybe destroy the enemy. So here, I can just do that like that. And then so I'm destroying my enemy. And then if I move the duck, I've destroyed the wrong thing. Sorry, my apologies. Let me just destroy the piece of plastic. So we'll try that again. And so there's my piece of plastic. And when I go over it again, it is destroying a piece of plastic every time. So it just gives me that functionality that
Yeah,
I
because
can
it gives
have.
you a lot more of the blocks that would be needed for the gameplay.
Absolutely.
I see where that's
And
coming
if
from.
you
Then you
look
can
at,
kind of,
yeah, if you look at the sprites here, you've got the physics, so you've got velocity, you've got position, you've got setting the X and Y position, you've got following sprites. There's so much in here that you don't, I suppose one of the things that it does is it wraps up a lot of things that isn't as easy to do within Scratch. You have to do a lot more work in Scratch. So if you look at where I just said, move my sprite with buttons, for any of you who have coded in Scratch, that would involve 4 different blocks. On left arrow key pressed, do something. On right arrow key pressed, do something. On up arrow key pressed, do something. On down arrow key pressed. By just saying move my sprite with buttons, it's doing it already for me. So it wraps a lot of things in together, and it deals with things like velocity that you don't really have in Scratch in the same way as you have here.
and velocity, we mean that how fast it's going across the screen, is it?
And the direction in which it's
and the
going as
direction
well.
it's going
Yeah.
in. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how it moves around the screen, you can set a velocity in the X direction, which controls the over and back movement, and you can set a velocity in the Y direction. And again, if you look here, if I change the VX to 0, what will happen is when I restart, I now can't move over and back. I can move up and down, but because I've set the VX to 0, I can't move over and back. So there's a lot of things in there. There's a huge amount in here. And I would say in the beginning, you know, you can get a game up and running very quickly. You can see how quickly I got this up and running here.
So it's a question of, you know, I suppose from the club perspective and family perspective, you know, because of the fact you can actually see the game being designed and test it really, really quickly, almost like that, you know, when you're using MakeCode and you can see this, the microbit, that you can kind of play with things very quickly to see whether things are working or not working. And again, I suppose from the sort of family perspective as well, you know, being able to do some of the crafting there of actually designing your own sprites.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's really important because I think sometimes, you know, when I started showing you, and I'll just go back and I'll share my screen again. When I was showing you the code here in my PowerPoint presentation, I could have easily just put up that code and just got you to, you know, or got you to do all of those one by one. That's not the way I would develop this. So I would do the on start first, get the duck to move and make sure that it moves correctly, change the background color, make sure that's working, then get the piece of plastic to show and get that working as it should be, and only then bring in the overlap. Because if you do it all together, you don't understand what any of the blocks are doing. So for me, it's very much about, you know, do it a little bit at a time, make sure it's working, and then add on, and only add on when the other bit is working. Because if you put all the code in, then if something is going wrong, you don't know where the problem is. Sorry to cut across you, Sarah.
Yeah, no. So I suppose that's where the storyboarding comes out. Is, you know, you talked before about the design of the game and the who and the what and what's happening. That's the important part of the planning, I suppose, at the beginning, is to kind of think what you're going to be doing before you even start your code, to see whether you've got the basics of, you know, who's the player, who's the enemy, how things are going to move before you even start your coding, to see whether it's actually going to work in the first place.
Well, and I would go a step further. I suppose this came from, I teach in the IT department and I teach games design development students. And I asked a former student of mine a couple of years ago to come to Coder Dojo. I'm a Coder Dojo mentor for a number of years. And I asked a former student to come and do a games design workshop for me. And when he did, he said, okay, put all the laptops away. And he brought in paper and markers. And he said, okay, now we're going to draw. So he got the guys in Coder Dojo to actually create their story. So we did no laptop work that night. And I remember thinking, and they were all kind of saying, Pam, what are we doing here? What's this about? But actually, it was probably one of the best sessions they've ever had, because what they did was they stepped back a little bit from it. I think sometimes we have a tendency to get stuck in, and then we are halfway through and we don't know what we're trying to do. So if you haven't thought about what you're trying to do, the other thing you can do is you can draw out, you know, get a sum copy or maths copy and draw out, you know, have a 16 by 16 square and get get the kids to draw in their characters before they go near arcade at all, that they've planned out what their character is going to look like. I think sometimes when we're faced with, you know, creating a game, we're not sure where to go with it. So if we've thought about it and got it, you know, got our plan and our design in first, then you can think about, well, how are you going to get it to move? What's it going to look like? How are you going to get it to move? What's it going to do? How is it going to interact with the other characters on the screen? If you can answer all those questions, then you've got a game.
Okay, so that's really where the family activity comes in itself, then, that you
Absolutely,
can
yeah.
have younger children perhaps doing some of the design, but as a family, you're kind of coming up with your whole concept of the game before you even begin to start doing the coding side of things.
Absolutely.
So a lot of our families as well, actually, just because we're talking about design, I think Olaf asked whether you could import graphics to make the sprite. Is that something you can do?
Done that. I can check and see. Just give me 2 seconds. I haven't done that. So if I just go here, you might be able to. I don't think you can, but I could be incorrect in that. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing an obvious place where you can do that in this one. So I don't think you can. But as I said, I could be corrected on that one.
And obviously within our clubs as well, we use a lot of microbits. So one of the things that works, I suppose, with family environment is when things come to life. But there's nothing, you can't really directly connect your microbit, can you, to the MakeCode Arcade as such?
You can't connect a microbit because the games play on, you know, another kind of a device, and you can buy those devices. Those devices I think are about 50 or 60 euros. I have used Arcade. I came across it 4 years ago. I went to the Microsoft Build conference in Seattle. I was very lucky to get the opportunity to go, and I saw it, and I knew as soon as I saw it, I knew it was a game changer. It was a game changer for me, and I've worked in Scratch for years. I just loved how it just wrapped everything together in a different way. I have a few actual physical devices, but I rarely use them because the emulator is so good. I think the kids just love it. So you don't necessarily need the device to make it, you know, to make it real, I think, for them. One of the things that I've done when I do that activity with the duck and the plastic, at the end we have a competition. So if I have a group in, we have a competition to see who can beat me. So we'll put on a countdown. There's 30 seconds, and that kind of brings a little bit of competitiveness, and just it makes it a little bit more real for them. You can download it onto a device. There are a number of devices that you can download it onto, but you don't need the device necessarily for it.
And yeah, as you say, you can have that sort of tournament side by
Absolutely,
just,
yeah.
you know, playing as you would do, as we all did in the past. It kind of brought me back to my Donkey Kong days when I was
There you
looking at
go.
this. I am definitely showing my age.
Not at all.
That's fantastic. Does anybody else have any questions? Well, we have Pam here, such a font of knowledge.
So Sarah, just while people are maybe thinking of some questions, some of those, so we have some videos already created and we're in the process of creating some other ones. I'm happy to share those with you as well. So they go through step by step. And as I said, you know, I'm not a proponent for just putting up the code and saying, you know, there you go, just put it up, because then I'm not sure that people understand it. So I would never put in the score until the very end. So I'd make sure everything works first. So it goes through step by step how to create those games. So I'm happy to share those with you, and if they're of any use to your clubs, then
that would be fantastic. And then I can distribute across. Thanks, fine, Elaine. Yeah, we'll record it, so if we miss anything, you'll be able to watch it back. So yeah, that would be great to have that as a resource, so that people, because I think sometimes as well, you need to see examples of things, don't you, for it to really go, okay, I've got it now in my head, I've seen this example, and then the creativity starts and you think, okay, well, I can put this thing with this thing, and actually when I think about this game, I can see this happening. So I think we can get a couple of examples in. And for any of you guys that are on Slack, I know a couple of the clubs are already on Slack, and more clubs will be joining. We can always set up a channel for a MakeCode Arcade channel and start sharing our ideas across the different clubs as well. Would be fantastic. Any more questions while we're here? No, that's fantastic. So what I'll do is we'll obviously record this, and yeah, as Mary said, yeah, examples for everybody would be fantastic. So I'll try and did you say there was 1 or 2, Pam, of the lessons that we could share with the clubs?
Yeah, I have a few already done, so I'll share those. I'll share the plastic one in the short term anyway, and
Okay.
so I can get that out to you pretty quickly, because that one is pretty much ready to go.
That would be brilliant. So that would
Yeah, I suppose one of the things about tonight, when you only have a half an hour, and I wasn't sure would people work along with me, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about, what Arcade is about, and just our project, and what we've done with it and how we've gone about it. But I'm happy to, if you want to ask me any questions even afterwards, I'm very happy to do that.
That would be brilliant. And maybe we can get you back again, Pam.
That sounds like a plan.
Yeah, so maybe we can get you back again. So if we are all practicing with MakeCode Arcade, and then we have another session for the clubs that have done projects, if they have questions or answers, or even
Absolutely.
to
Yeah.
demo some of the projects that they worked on. So maybe we could look at that in the new year if people are up for it. So that's fantastic. Thank you again, Pam. Really, really appreciate it. If anybody, I will try and distribute those lesson plans to everybody that's here. And if anybody has any questions, you have my email. If anybody doesn't have my email, I'm going to put it into the chat. Just a second here. So if anybody has any questions that they want to pass on to Pam, just email me, and I will pass them on. And you can email me anyway if you need any support with the clubs. So sarah.chapman@tcd.ie. And thank you everybody for your time, and thank you, Pam, for your time. And we'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for having me.